Okay, so welcome to Hyderabad PowerApps and PowerAutomate user group. This is the April meetup, and here we are going to talk about various aspects of Power Platform. So, first of all, thank you so much for joining the meetup on a Saturday. And today we have two sessions as part of our agenda. The first session will be about how to build controls using PowerApps Component Framework, or you may have known this with the name PCF. This is going to be presented by Clavin Fernandes. He is a Microsoft MVP for business applications, and today he will talk about PCF controls. Then, our next session for the day is about Power BI and how you can integrate Power BI with Power Apps and Power Automate to maximize your business productivity. And that is going to be delivered by Jaison Menezes. And that is our second session for today. So first we'll start with the PCF controls session by Clavin. So hey Clavin, welcome to Hyderabad Power Platform User Group. Clavin, you're on mute.
I need to move this out here. Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you perfectly fine.
Perfect. So, hello everyone, and a very warm welcome to Hyderabad Power Apps and Power Automate user group. Today, I'm going to show you how you can build controls using Power Apps Component Framework. So, my name is Clavin, and I'm a Microsoft Business Applications MVP. I'm also a Power Automate super user. I like to share my knowledge on my blog, that is clavinfernandes.wordpress.com, and my YouTube channel in the hopes that it will help other power users. You can find my LinkedIn and the Twitter handle on the screen. Please feel free to connect with me. So, what is Power Apps Component Framework? Why do you need it? And what does it provide? Is something that this screen will go ahead and answer. So when I say that, Microsoft Power Apps Component Framework enables you to create reusable code components that can be used within your Power Apps application. Hmm, I said code. Now, people out there will say Power Apps is actually a no code platform, right? So, do I need to write some custom code? You don't need to, but you might want to. The reason I tell you this is because you, being a citizen developer or a business user, knows the business. But at times, the business needs cannot be sufficed with out of box components that Power Apps provide. Only in that particular scenario, you will approach a pro developer and work as a fusion development team. Get your requirements, tell him the requirements, and he will develop the component for you. Now, when I say that, let me first start directly with an example. So out here, a citizen developer came to me and told me, Clavin, I have a requirement. I need to go ahead and display few files in a PDF viewer. I was like, fine, right? You have a component out of the box with Power Platform with which you can add PDF and display PDFs. What do you need from me? And he was like, Clavin, the business needs more. So this is the out of the box PDF viewer. This is how it would look. But he said he wants more. So I asked him what he wants more. He said he wants to sign the PDFs within Power Apps. Then he said he wants to go ahead and save the annotated or the signed PDF in a data source. Now that was not possible with the out of box PDF viewer. So I put in some thought, went to Google and found a viewer, the PS PDF Kit viewer out here. And this is the code example that I followed. And what did I give him in return? Is this. So, my friends, I have created a component out here, a code component, which will render PDFs. So, when I say render PDFs, it renders the PDFs as well as you can annotate, you can sign the PDF. So, let's take a quick little example. I'm typing my name and I can go down and I can click done. So here you see, I have annotated the PDF or I have added the signature. I can just put it here somewhere. I can go back, and if I click on download, here you'll see a PDF with a signature, right? That's what it is. I can also save the PDF to a data source. So that is what he asked me as well. So he told me two requirements and I created a component. I'll again repeat, this is not possible out of the box and I had to go ahead and write a code component for it. So I saved the PDF and you see a few seconds ago, the PDF is in my OneDrive. So now I have empowered the citizen developer by writing some lines of code out here and created a custom code component. And this is what, and this is how powerful it can be when it comes to Power Apps component framework. Now, what I showed you is just the tip of the iceberg, and there is more to it, right? So when I say that, I have already answered. When do you need the out of the Power Apps component framework? The out of box component do not fit the app maker's requirement. And what does the component framework provide? It provides visual controls. Now, when I say that, I showed you the component, but what are the technologies that I used? I used Node.js, right? Now, again, you don't need to be an expert with Node.js. You just need to know the basics. Then a little bit of HTML to create the visual components. TypeScript or JavaScript. You need to know the front end languages. You also need to know a little bit of CLI. Again, don't worry, I'm going to cover everything in this particular session. Now, when I say that, one thing that I told is that if you are a citizen developer and want to get your feet wet, in my LinkedIn post, I said this, right? You join my session. So the bare basics to create a component would be HTML and JavaScript. So if you know that, you are at the right place, and let's go ahead and build a component together. So this is the tooling that we'll need, but instead of reading through the tooling, let's go ahead and start with creating our component. So I'm going to go ahead and open my developer command prompt. I'll go to the D drive. I'll type in mkdir and I'll create a folder, maybe hyd2 cd. I'll change the directory and I'll say hyd2. Right, I'm in the hyd2 folder. Now, there is a prerequisite. To initialize a project, you should have the Power Apps CLI installed. And PAC stands for Power Apps CLI. I have it installed. The version is old, but it would suffice for this requirement. If you don't have it, you'll get some error out here. But I have it, so that's fine. Now, I have the pack installed, or the Power Apps CLI. What do I need to create? I need to create a Power Apps component framework, a PCF. So I'll hit enter. Here, my friends, it tells me that it has two more commands that I can use. One is init and one is push. But what we need to do, we need to initialize a project. So I'll type in pack PCF init. As soon as I hit init, it reads a namespace. It needs a name of the project, and it also needs a template. Now, when I say that, I will go ahead and create a pack project. Now, I'll paste in some line of code so that I will save on time. So bear with me, because I tell you, I have fat fingers, and if I try to type it, it will surely go for a toss. But here, my friends, you have already initialized a Power Apps component framework project, and that was that easy. Now you need a code editor to go ahead and open this project. So I'll say open folder. I'll go one step back, and it was in HYD2. So I will open HYD2 folder. So inside HYD2 folder, I have my project out here, but I need to install some dependencies. I'll type in npm install. Now this will install the prerequisites out here, right? So as the prerequisites are getting installed, let's get back to the slides. So what did we use so what tooling do we need? First thing, the Power App component framework. CLI or the PowerApps CLI. That is what we need to initialize the project. We need to use MS Build to transpile transcript code. We need to go ahead and have a browser. Everybody has a browser, but that's a prereq. Another thing is that we need to have Visual Studio Code or an equivalent code editor so that we can write some code, right? So let's see. It seems that it has been done. So I can go ahead and refresh my project. And let me see. It seems that everything is here. I have the node modules. Yes, node modules are out here as well. So everything looks good. So here itself in the code editor, I can open a terminal. And the files that I'm interested in is index.tx and control manifest.ts, XML, sorry. What is control manifest dot input.xml? What is this file? This file provides you a place where you can define your input and output, right? You can define the property bag out here. Now, what is a property bag, you might ask? Now, when I say a property bag, let me go ahead and get back into the browser. Now, each component out here has got properties associated to it. So if I click on this component, you see there are a few properties such as documents, viewer width, viewer height, PDF. This is the property bag. And where do you define the properties? You define the properties in control input.manifest file, control manifest.input file. So when I say that, the out of the box code gives me one sample property out here, right? It gives me one sample property. In addition to that, it gives me few other properties which are commented. Now, if you look at the property, it has a property name, it has a display name, it has a description, it has an off type. Off type means single line of text or multi-line of text or number, etc. And usage is bound. So you're going to bind this to your property bag, and if it's required, it's true. The same thing is out here in the next line, but this time it's of a type number. So let's go ahead and get rid of it because this is going to be a bare bone example. So we'll clean up some things. We'll keep our code clean. Now, next comes the resources within the control manifest.input file. When I say resources, resources can be your index.ts file because that is where your control will be rendered. Then you have something known as order. What is an order? An order means in which sequence the resources are loaded. So if you look at line number 9, it tells me that if you have CSS, the order is 1. So load the index.txt file and the CSS together. That is what it tells me, right? But again, for this particular demo, we don't need this. We'll keep it simple. Now here is the resource file. Then we have the feature usage. So when I say the feature usage, if your code component is interacting maybe with the camera control, etc., that is where you will uncomment these lines of code. But our code will not go ahead and do that. So I'll again remove the comments. And this is how our bare bone manifest file will look like. Now that we know the manifest file, the next file that you and I are interested in is the index.ts file. So when I say that, the index.ts file has got few properties or few methods, sorry. When I say methods, it has 4, namely init, then it has the update view. Let me get rid of the terminal for now. The update view, you have the get outputs and the destroy. So initialize, as the name suggests, it is initialized as soon as the code component is loaded. In the initialize method, you have the context. Context is the gateway to everything. Understand that. With context, you can get parameters. So that's what the context is. And context is something that you'll use over and over again in your code component. Then you have notify output change. Notify output change goes ahead and tells the get output method that something has changed, right? That is what it does. Next, you have the state, which defines the state of your PCF. And then you have the container. The container is the large div element within which the PCF control will be rendered. Then you have the update view properties. update view method. When I say the update view method, whenever something in the property bag updates, it will fire automatically. For example, you pass a new document, the update view will fire and it will load the new document. That is what the update view method does. Then you have the get outputs. As I told you, notify output change raises his hand, and then the get output method will go ahead and fetch the output of whatever has changed. Destroy. The destroy method is used as a cleanup method. It will clean up the things. Now, when I say that, let me drag the browser out here and let's try to open the terminal and let me try to build this project. So how do you build this project? npm run build. So this will build up the project and this will open the test harness. Let me go back to the slide real quick. So we already covered what is the manifest file. How do you implement your code component? You need TypeScript and JavaScript. And then what are the resource files and how are you going to use them? Right? Once we have covered that, and then we have also covered what methods are there in it. Then you have the update and get outputs and destroy. So I'll just start npm start. So give me a minute. I'll just quickly start the project. So this should open the test harness. The test harness is your local workbench where you can go ahead and see how your code is getting rendered. So it opened up in another slide. So I'll open it here. Just bear with me. Trying to open a browser. So this is how our PCF control looks like. I'll say that the PCF project looks like. You have the sample property out here, and it has nothing in it. You have the component width and height, and then you have the value. This is our bare bone PCF project. Now, when I say that, let's go ahead and exit out of the workbench. I'll say Control Y, and I have exited out of it. So next, what do we need to do? We need to define some properties in the property bag. That's the first thing that you do, right? When you create a project, you need to pass in some input properties and the output properties. And I went ahead and showed you the properties out there, right? So let me get rid of the sample property and let me paste in few properties out here. The properties are the properties that I showed you in my PCF control. So let me go back and show it to you again. So these are the properties: the document, the viewer width, the viewer height, and the PDF document. That is exactly what I have gone ahead and shown in here. Now, I have the property bags defined, so that's good. Next, what I need to do, I need to go ahead and reference that properties in my index.ts file. But before doing that, I need to save my work. So I have saved my work out here and I'm in the index.ts file. Now I'll go to the init method. Now, firstly, we need to go ahead and create a placeholder for our PDF viewer in our example, right? We'll take the PDF viewer as an example in our PCF project. So to do that, let me go ahead and create some variables, and that will be up there first. I'll create few variables. So I have created few variables: notify output change, instance, div, the base 64, which will give us the output of the PDF that is signed or annotated. Then I have the context, and then I have a dummy placeholder known as value 1, right? That is what it is. I don't have any more variables to define. Next, what I want to define the init method. So in the initialize method, I want to go ahead and add some HTML. But here, my friends, I'm getting an error. You see, it's like it's not giving me the viewer height and the viewer width. Why is it? I have it defined here, but it's not resolving here. Why? The answer is, for that to resolve, you need to build your project. Only then the IntelliSense will kick in, right? So what I'll do is that I'll hit the up arrows twice and I'll say npm run build. And once this project has been built successfully, it's still giving me the error. So it seems that I have not saved things properly. So let me go back, file, save all, comment these two lines. I'm pretty sure that it's still referencing the sample property itself. So it's giving me the old property that I removed from the project. So that's the problem. File, save all. So sometimes you'll spend like at least few minutes to debug this. Why is the property not visible? I have already referenced it in my manifest file, but still it's not there. I think there is something still wrong. So you see, so this is getting a little bit tricky, but hopefully it gets built and the demo gods are with me and I don't get any errors. Okay, it's still giving me an error and I don't know why. So just bear with me. Need to go ahead and find out. So sample property is still getting referenced. I'll quickly check my manifest file so that I have things okay out here. Let me paste in the manifest file from another place. We save it. Oh, it's still taking the old things. I don't know why. So let me open an existing project and let me just go ahead and see what have I done wrong. So to do that, I'll just open my PDF component viewer project. I need to save this. So I'll open a new window. Going to open a folder. So this is some live troubleshooting going on. So please bear with me. So as I told you, the context dot parameter, but it's still referencing the old one. I don't know why. The reason is I should save it. It happened to me once where I had to create the whole project altogether. But yeah, I hope that it does not happen again because this is a live demo and I don't want to go ahead and do that. It's still giving me that error. So let me quickly check. Come on, save all, run build. Okay, if it does not, I'll do a npm run start and then try my luck. Okay, so finally, after some time, it seems that the properties have been propagated. I think this was really related to saving things. So hopefully now I'll just go ahead and try to uncomment this. The properties are there, but for some reason it's not getting the IntelliSense. So just say we were height dot raw, and let me append the px out here. So
Um,
bear with me. Yes, Ritika?
hey, Clevin, sorry to interrupt, but I was just saying when you were doing
Uh-huh.
the copy paste, is it possible the namespace is pasted for your other project?
The namespace should be correct. The reason is that I have kept it um, I've kept it as it is, but yeah, I can go ahead and create a new project as well. But yeah, I have a new project already compiled, which worked for me in the other screen. So I'm going to drag that in right now.
Okay.
So this is what it is. So I have the viewer width and the viewer height. Now, once I do that, I'll go back to the index.ts. So just bear with me. It's just that things don't work when it should work. So it's a bit tricky. So just bear with me. So I have the index.txt file as well ready out here. So here you see, my friends, I have the viewer width and the viewer height defined correctly, right? Now, once the viewer width and the viewer height have been defined, and if I run this project, so it's npm run build, it will build my project and it will go ahead and save it. Next, what I want to do in my project, next, I want to go ahead and include the PS PDF kit viewer. And how will I do that? To do that, I first need to read their documentation. Now, when I say that, you need to do the prerequisite, that is, do an npm install dash dash save PS PDF kit. If you do that, all the libraries come in, right? Once you have the libraries, you need to go ahead and add a div element. The div element will have the width and the height. That is what I have defined, the width and the height, right? Out here. And then I have appended the whole method, the PS PDF kit method. And if you see, I am lazy loading it. So it's like it's an async await method, and I'm lazy loading it. Similarly, because it's lazy loaded, I need to also go ahead and the init method should also be lazy loaded. So you see, it's async. I changed it to async and then await, right? Now, in addition to that, you also need to include the base URL. Base URL is something like a public repository for your npm packages. That's what you need to go ahead and use this PS PDF kit viewer. Now, when I say that, we are working within the context of Power Apps. In that case, you need to go ahead and pass the values as an array buffer. So remember, PS PDF kit needs an array buffer, but when it comes to Power Apps, it returns us base 64. And if I want to pass it to a Power Automate, I need it in base 64. So here, my friends, I'm converting array buffer to base 64. I have two methods, and you'll find it easily on the internet if you try to Google it. And then I have base 64 to array buffer, vice versa, right? Then comes the update view. For the update view, what I'm doing out here, I'm going ahead and defining the div element, and I'm giving it the parameters. Now, when I say that, I have the parameters such as viewer height and viewer width. That is it. And I'm updating my component only when the document property has been changed. Now, if you see, I have commented this line. Why have I commented this line? Because this works fine when it is in the production, or when it works in the context of Power Apps. But in the test harness, the update property method does not fire. Okay, that's one thing that you need to remember. So if you think, why is it not working? For me, it never fired. So that's why I have commented this, because I'm going to run this project after that. Now, what next? The get outputs. Now, if you look at the PS PDF kit method that is here, the load method, I have a save button. The save button, what it does, it saves the base 64. For example, I have annotated the PDF and it will output the base 64. So when I say that, it is being saved in a variable known as PDF base 64, right? And that is when I will say, go and notify the get output method. And it will notify the method, and here it will go ahead and store it in a variable known as PDF document. Now, the PDF document method is actually a property in the property bag, right? Or it's a parameter. And that's where I'm going to return it. So, and I don't need to do any cleanup. So that is pretty much it. It is like I have created my code component. That's all I can say. And just understand this. Within few minutes, I have read some line of code which is absolutely clear about the PS PDF Kit browser viewer. They have got great documentation, and I was able to hook it up within the Power Apps component framework project within few minutes. Right, that's again, I'll say within few minutes. It's really crazy easy sometimes, but yeah, don't get when I say that, you can also create very, very complex things with Power Apps component framework. And here, my friends, my project is running, and it's rendering the PSPDF Kit browser viewer in the browser. Now, what about debugging? How can I go ahead and debug my code component? To debug my code component, I can introduce an error. Let's introduce an error somewhere. So the public repository that I'm using an unpackaged, but if it was a public repository, I give it a wrong path. And I need to debug this component. How can I do that? So I'll again build it. And I will try to type in npm start. And my test harness should launch. So this time, if I refresh this particular page, it should not load my PCF component. And this time it's just giving me the green placeholder. Now, how will I troubleshoot this? First things first, you need to use the DOM developer tools. And the first thing that you see will be the console. In the console, you will see that there is an error where it says E is not a function. Okay, it's quite descriptive. No, right? So next, what you'll see the network tab. Always remember, you can look at the network tab and find out what is going wrong and where things are going wrong. If you see, I'll just hit, I have a debugger as well. You will see that I have an error in loading the chunk elements. And as soon as I hover it, it shows me that it's not able to load the unpackage. Okay, it's not able. And if I closely look at the URL, it's showing me that it's this, not dished. That itself tells me that, Clavin, you have passed in or you have a typo in your URL. Now, that's one way of troubleshooting, right? You go and search the network, you look at the console. Next, you can also go ahead and debug the source as well. So index.ts file, you can go to the index.ts file, put in a debugger, say pause when an exception is caught, and hit enter. Refresh your screen. And at that point, what really happens is that your debugger will be hit and you should be able to troubleshoot line by line code. That's how you can go ahead and debug your component framework, right? Or you can say that's how you can debug your code component. So first things first, look at the console. If console does not provide you context, look at the network. If network does not provide you some context, then go into the source, do a control P, put an index.tx, and there, my friends, you can go ahead and find the error. Now, when I say that, let me minimize this. Let me go back and let me make it okay. So control C, control Y, and this is how the code component can be created. Now you have the code component created. How will you go ahead and package your code component, or how will you go ahead and get the code component into Power Apps? For that, your friend would again be CLI. So when I go ahead and say that, you need to hit few commands out here, right? First things first, I need to go to this particular folder. I'll say CD and I'll change the directory. I'm into this directory right now. I can do a mkdir and I'll say PDF viewer 1, something like that. I'll just go ahead and type in PDF viewer 1. Okay, I need to do a CD PDF viewer 1. Right, so I'm into this particular folder. Once I'm into this particular folder, I can hit a command and I want to create a solution. So it's going to be pack. What is the command? I don't remember. It's going to be pack solution in it. Yeah. So if you don't remember commands, you can always use help as well. So pack solution in it. I'll give it a developer publisher name, developer, and a publisher prefix. Now the solution is being added. Once the solution is being added, I need to go ahead and add the reference. So to do that, I need to clear the path. So I'm going to clear this path and I'm going to provide this particular path out here. And my project is already added to my CDS. And once that's done, all I need to do is that I need to hit an MS build. Once I hit the MS build, within few seconds, I should have my project being compiled and packaged within a folder, right? So let me go to this folder in another tab. So let me go there. So it's D, HYD1. So I'm going to HYD1. I'm going to PDF component prop and going to viewer. It's still trying to bundle my codes. So let's hope that this time there's no error. So here, my friends, this is the folder. I'm into the folder and I have PDF viewer 1, and inside the bin, I have debug and I have the zip file. And this zip file I need to upload to the Power Apps. Now, when I say that, where will I go ahead and upload this? I need to upload this in a solutions gallery, right? So let me go ahead and open the Power Apps window. So I'm going to go into make.powerapps.com. Okay, before that, there's a prerequisite that you need to take care of. You need to go to the admin page, you need to go into settings, and you need to go into features and enable the Power Apps component for Canvas app feature out here. Remember that. If you go ahead and enable it, only then your code components will be visible in your Power Apps. So I'm here in my Power Apps. I'm going to solutions. I can go ahead and import my solution. That's PDF viewer. So let me go to the folder. Bear with me. So HYD1, PDF viewer 1. I'll go to bin, I'll go to debug, and here I'm just going ahead and importing my solution. So always remember, the Power Apps component framework are always packaged as a solution. And at times, if you update the component, if the component does not go ahead and render, you need to go to the control.manifest file and you need to change the version number. Once you change the version number, only then the new component will be visible in the Power Apps uh, in make.powerapps.com, right? So just bear with me. It's importing the solution. Once your solution has been imported, you need to publish all customizations. So you need to click on this particular button and boom, it will publish all the customizations, right? So let me open a Power Apps and let me get rid of the component so that I can show you in the meantime that it's importing. And it takes time, right? It sometimes takes time. I'll be very honest with you. So if I go back here to Power Apps and if I go to plus icon, I can go to get more components. And as soon as you have published, imported and published it, you can click on code and all your code components will be visible out here. And next, what you need to do, you just need to add those components to your Power App. So I can just click like this, and this will add the component to the screen. No, it will add the component to the tree, and then I need to add the component to the screen, something like this. And then I can plumb it up with something like var, I think the output, yeah, var doc. And here, my friends, the Power App gets rendered. And in my case, I have created a flow which is triggered by this button. If you see, it goes ahead and saves the document into a different data source, for example, OneDrive or Dropbox. But long story short, this is what the Power Apps component framework will enable you and empower you. This will help you build new solutions. It's still importing, it will take time, but yes, I think that is pretty much it when it comes to Power Apps component framework. Let's look at the life cycle. First comes the init method. Then I told you what the notify output change does. It tells that the output has been changed. What does the update view does? Whenever a property in the property bag gets updated, that is when it will go ahead and trigger. For example, in our case, whenever a new array buffer or a base 64-bit string is being passed, that's when I will go ahead and update the PDF viewer. If there's an error, it will go ahead and throw us an error. So that is what the life cycle is. We are already done with the demo. And I would like to say thank you to Ritika as well as Yash for having me here. Now, when I say that, we had a glitch in our demo, but not to be disheartened. At least I'll say it to myself. I have a video tutorial that is being created, and trust me, it's a step by step video tutorial. So you can go ahead and follow along and create your own Power Apps PDF viewer component from scratch. And this is the link, and this is the video tutorial that I'm talking about. I'm also going to share the sample code. So go ahead and try to use it. For some reason, today demo gods were not with me, but yeah. Thank you, Ritika. Thank you, Yash. I'm open for questions.
Thank you, Clevin, for coming here and presenting this, first of all. And I think these things happen, so don't worry about it. We get to see the final product, and that's what matters. So I think this was a
Exactly.
very nice session. So thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you for your kind words. To be very honest, yeah. And another thing, the PDF, the UI was created with reference to the article of Matthew, which he went ahead and published. And that is how the user interface for the app was created, not the app. I'm telling for the document library, which looks something like this. This was with reference to Matthew's blog. But yeah, so the gist is still here. I would just say, even if the demo was not all that 100%, we could get to see the end product. We could understand how we can go ahead and create properties in the property bag, what methods actually do, how does init method work, how does the update view method work, how you can go ahead and import other npm classes. And if you look at this PDF viewer, it's actually a wasm file, right? You will have community questions. Can you go ahead and load wasm files in a PCF? The answer is yes, it works, right? You can load a wasm file, which is a web assembly file, and create your own PDF viewer, something like this. Now, as I told you, this is just the tip of the iceberg. Another thing that I would like to mention, if at all you are planning to create a PCF, the first thing that you need to go and search is the PCF gallery. There might be a PCF already there which will actually meet your requirement. So don't try to recreate the wheel. Just go there, try to find the PCF, and it's also maintained by a Microsoft MVP. So you can think that yes, it gives you good amount of PCF controls out of the box, and perhaps you can get more ideas or take this idea and modify it and meet your custom requirements.
Um, okay, so thank you, Clevin. We do have two questions on the chat. So the
Hmm.
first one is, if someone doesn't have a coding background, are there any resources that will help write code for Power Apps component framework?
Yes. So first things first, you have learned the basics today, but I would highly recommend you to learn a little bit of TypeScript, JavaScript, and there's a Microsoft Learn path. I'm going to search for that. So Microsoft Learn path, Power Apps Component Framework. It comes under, I think, PL 900. So there is a good learning path which will help you step by step create your code components. But as a prerequisite, as I said, you need to know a little bit of JavaScript, a little bit of TypeScript, and that is where you can achieve great things. And yeah, means there's a learning path. I'm trying to learn. I'm trying to find it. If I find it, I'll drop it in the chat window as well. So yeah, any other questions?
Yes, there is one more, and it's a two-part question I see. What is the licensing model for PCF, and is it compatible with various browsers?
Yes, it is compatible with various browsers. That is there. Microsoft has taken care of things. Now, when I say that, you also are responsible for taking care of the browser. For example, if you're using third party and that is not going ahead and supported in maybe a browser, then you need to take care of it, and that could be taken care using code. um, so that is one thing. What was the initial question? Yeah, you need to have a premium license because this is CDS, right? Because you are going ahead and importing solutions, so you should have a premium license to go ahead and use Power Apps Component Framework. And this is the learn module that I was talking about. That this is excellent resource, step by step. It talks about what you want, how is the architecture, how is the tooling, how to go ahead and demo your components, etc., and check your knowledge.
Okay, so Clevin, if you can add this URL to the chat, I'll share it with
Ah,
everybody.
yes, yes, I'll do that. Any other questions out there?
No, that is all for now.
Perfect, perfect. So as I told you, there is always a way to go ahead and um, follow my tutorial because I have a YouTube channel. Go, if you're interested, go and follow the step-by-step tutorial. For today, I think the demo gods were not with me, but yeah, I wanted to go ahead and show you how easy it is to go ahead. But the idea is still there. Look at my tutorial, and if you have any questions, drop me comments out here, and I'll be more than happy to answer them.
So thank you, Clevin. And guys, if you have any questions for Clevin, please do not hesitate to reach out. I have already shared his social media credentials on the chat here. So you can reach out to him on LinkedIn, Twitter, and you can follow his personal blog, which are all there in the chat. With that, thank you so much, Clevin. This was something even I learned today in terms of the debugging for the PCFs. I looked at the various ways, so that helped me as well. So thank you.
Welcome.
Okay. Yeah. And next up, we have our second session for the day, which is about Power BI and how it can help you maximize the business productivity with Power Apps and Power Automate. And for that session, we have Jaison Menezes here with us today. So he's going to talk about how you can use Power BI with Power Apps and Power Automate to maximize business productivity. So, hey, Jason, over to you. You can share your screen and let me know in case there is anything I can help you with.
Yeah, sure. First and foremost, hello everyone, good afternoon. I'm glad to meet you all. Hope you all are doing great. My name is Jaison Menezes and I work as a associate consultant at CloudFront Technologies in Mumbai. First and foremost, my sincere gratitude goes towards Ritika and Yash for welcoming into the Hyderabad Power Platform User Group. This would be my first time here. Hope I add some value. So let's get started. I'll share my screen. Let me know if my screen is visible.
Yes, it is visible, Jason. Please continue.
Yeah, so the topic for my today's session was using Power BI with Power Apps and Power Automate session. Also, here is my LinkedIn profile. You can just visit here if you, in case you have any doubts which we can't discuss in this session, we can have a chat afterwards. So this would be a very basic level session. So I'll get started. So to start with, what is Power Platform? So Power Platform is an ecosystem of three main Microsoft apps: Power BI, Power Apps, and Power Automate. Power Virtual Agent is also included, but today I'll be using Power BI, Power Apps, and Power Automate. These three apps provide the means so that the users can modify, automate work processes, and analyze their data easily using a wide array of connectors that includes Microsoft's customer uh, re- resource management and custom connectors for all other third party apps as well. So let's go through them one by one. Before that, we'll see the architecture. The interconnection between these apps is possible because of the wide array of connectors which are supported across them, and a type of database called dataverse which helps the underlying data between these apps to get connected with each other. So let's get started with Power BI. Microsoft Power BI is a business intelligence platform tool that would provide the users for analyzing and visualizing existing underlying raw data. We can visualize our normal data into graphs, charts, and we can view data, get insights using key performance indicators, etc. Second up on the list is Microsoft Power Apps. Power Apps allows us to build custom easy web and mobile applications with low code approach, so that if we just have an idea on our head, we can execute this idea without undergoing complicated coding process, so that a business process becomes easier. And third, we are using Power Automate, which helps to automate workflows which would either require like normal persons to do repetitive tasks. This we can schedule so that our efforts get reduced. So let's take a look. So I'll in this session I'll be showing that using Power BI, inside Power BI, how we are going to use this visual together. Now, consider a use case. For example, I have a Power BI report which shows the invoice due date for various customers. We have here calculated columns which calculate the days since the invoice is due and the amount for which it is due. So Power BI was usually used just to look at the data or just to analyze it, but when we are combining it with Power Apps, we can use it to modify data as well or to set reminders. For instance, here along with inside the Power BI, I have created a Power Apps visual which would allow me to send reminders to the particular client who is due on his invoices. So I'll just go ahead and give you a demonstration on how is this working. So in the backend, I had used this Power Apps visual, which I'll show you in a while. So the data from the Power BI report gets loaded in the Power Apps as well, all the calculated columns, measures, etc. So when we go inside it, I have added pages so that my email gets saved. And when I add my email and I send, I would receive an Outlook email stating that my invoice is due for so and so customer. So as you can see, the effort of looking into Power BI to check for defaulters, then again going into Outlook, typing a custom mail gets reduced. As you can see, I have received the email just now as a reminder. Similarly, we can work on various use cases, such as, for example, consider your organization does a timesheet entry method to approve various employees so that their time entries are approved. So that, like, if an employee apply for leave or states the amount of work he has done for a day, he needs approval from his team lead or his manager. So we can similarly create a Power App through which the status of the application could be modified, such as to approved or decline or rejected. So we can use Power BI and Power Apps together to increase our productivity and efficiency. Now, for a basic example, I will going to create a feedback form which identifies the user sentiments regarding a particular report. So I'll go ahead and proceed. I'll add a new page. I'll use this Power App as a visual for Power BI. Now, for us to get started, we need to add some kind of data into the visual. Just for that visual to get loaded up. Now, as we have loaded the data in this visual, now we can choose our existing created apps, or we can create a new app from scratch. So I'll create a new simple app. We'll create a form. Since I'm creating a very simple Power App which would like just take user input, we don't require all these. But yeah, but when we are developing complex Power Apps which would require data from Power BI, we would require to play with these fields like inserting text box or modifying data. We would require Dropbox, etc. So as of now, I'll delete these options, and in the blank a blank canvas is shown here. Now I want a kind of Power App which would collect users inputs regarding something. So what would be better than using a Microsoft form, right? Through forms we can do various things, such as we can take user input, we can collect their feedback, we could collect survey, and all this could be done inside Power BI, which is more better. So I'll go to the input, I'll select the Forms Pro, and I will adjust it according to the layout I want in my app. Simultaneously, in a new window, I'll go to Forms, and I will create a new form. I'll name it, and I'll put a rating type of input in this form. We can add text, we can add dates, etc. As this is auto saved, so we will just go back and check if the form is loaded. Yes, the form is successfully saved. We'll open the form and we will copy its survey ID from the URL. The last part after the ID is the unique ID of the form. So we'll just copy it, and in the Power Apps window, we'll go to the option set and we will select survey ID. In the selected survey ID, we'll paste this. So as you can see, the form is loaded in Power Apps, but our main task was that this should be embedded in Power BI, so we could collect the user data in Power BI. So we will save it, save it as new app. As you can see in Power Apps, our form is saved. So we'll move back to Power BI. Since the report is not saved, we are in the edit mode. It will process the form's data, but it will not load. So we'll go ahead and save this file. Go to the reading view and go back to the page. As you can see, now it is asking for the form's permission inside Power BI. Now we will allow it. Now as you can see, our form is loaded inside Power BI. So this can be used in variety of scenarios, as I can say it, as you can collect the feedback of your reports, or if you want to, if you're giving this report to the client and you want some feedback, some changes, if the client wants some feedback, basically you can have a question and answer boxes here so that you can receive client feedbacks for your reports. So this was the scenario how we could use Power Apps inside Power BI, and the forms use case was very simple to use, but we can have this scenario used in multiple scenarios, such as I told that time, sheet entries, leave trackers, or invoice reminders, etc., with basic code. So now I'll move towards how to use Power Automate inside Power BI. So I'll head back to the basic. Now here I have created a basic Power App which would like collect my data, username and my region, and then when I trigger the Power Automate flow, my data set of Power BI would get updated. So this is a simple application which you can try out on your own to learn these concepts of how to use them together. So to get started, I'll just enter a manager's name. So this Power BI, this Power App collects user data like their name or region, and updates a particular data set Excel file, and this flow then refreshes Power BI data. So this is a very simple use case. I'll run this and show it to you as well. I'll put the manager as John and his region as Os. As you can see, now data has been successfully updated in the backend dataset uh, uh, of this Power App. Now we need the backend dataset of the Power App to reflect in Power BI. So we need to refresh the report. So we have a API of refreshing report in Power Automate. So we have used just that to create a flow. So we have to just trigger. After triggering, it takes a while to get loaded. So I'll refresh this page. As you can see, John and his region Australia has updated inside the Power BI dataset. This was a very simple flow. I'll show you its backend. And in the next step we will create our own flow, own different flow, different use case from this. So this was pretty simple. On press of a Power BI button, the dataset of the report should be refreshed, so that on refreshing the page, new data will get appeared on your screen. So this was the simple Power Automate and Power BI connection. Now let's head back to our editing page and create a basic flow which would export the existing Power BI data into a CSV file. Many times we may arouse in a scenario that client wants the raw data set of Power BI into Excel format. So in order to manually do this, we can use a flow instead, so that it would help us to make this process easier. So we will use the Power Automate visual again for Power BI. To get started, we require data which we want to convert into a CSV file. So we will add the necessary data. I have added the manager and region table, and I will go ahead and edit this flow. I'll create a new flow. Will not use existing templates, so I've created a new cloud flow. From the default trigger is automatically created that on press of a button inside Power BI, any action will get executed. In this scenario, we are creating a CSV file, but as you can imagine, the number of items we can do here is limitless. We can basically send a message on Teams, send an email to anyone, all inside Power BI report. There is no need to go outside a Power BI report. Basically, we can increase the use cases of how we use the report. So we'll add a new step, and we will use the compose operation in order to create a CSV. I'm sorry, I will use a create CSV table, not compose. I slipped my tongue. And from here we'll add Power BI data. So whatever data we have added in the visual reflected in this, gets converted into a CSV table basically. Now this CSV table is getting created, but we require a CSV file, and the CSV file has to be stored somewhere, right? So in order to do that, we'll add a new step, and we will search for the SharePoint action. Here we will select the create file option from the SharePoint lists of action. We just create it. Now, based on our tenant, automatically the related SharePoint address would get loaded. We have to select the folder where we have to create the SharePoint path. So I'll go with test, and in test I'll select JSON test folder. So as you can see, the folder path has been added. I will have to give the file a name, and I will also mention the extension of the type of file it would be generated, that is CSV. The content of the file would be based on the above outputs which we have created in create CSV table. So I'll add output, and I will save this flow. As you can see, the flow has been saved. So we will apply it, and we'll go back to the report. As you can see, now a button has been created. We can adjust the size of the button as per our requirement and place it anywhere, suppose below any histogram or line chart, if you want to execute something. Now I will navigate towards uh, the folder path. Now as you can see, there would not be any CSV created. Now I'll head back to Power BI and just trigger the flow. As you can see, it is saying that it is getting triggered, and it has been executed successfully. Now we head back towards our SharePoint, and I'll refresh. As you can see, our CSV file hyt.csv has been successfully created. So I'll just open it. Now as you can see, our the raw data from the Power BI which we wanted in CSV format has been successfully created. So this was the one of the use case I took for this session. So based on using all these three apps of the Power Platform ecosystem, helped, as you can see, helped us in solving a lot of like business tasks which would require us to like use different apps all together. Here we can, inside Power BI report only, we can use Power Apps, and we can also use Microsoft Flow, so that our automatic tasks will get executed successfully. So this was it from my side. If you have any doubts, uh, I can answer. If you have any questions regarding the process I have used here, I'll be happy to answer.
Okay, so thank you, Jason, for sharing a beautiful demo about the integration of various components. I do see one question on the chat, which is, does delegation affect Power Apps embedded in Power BI?
Sorry, I didn't get delegation.
Yes, so the delegation effect, where it only allows you to see certain number of rows in a Canvas app, is that affected on the Canvas app when you embed it in Power BI?
Before sharing the Canvas app on Power BI, we have to make sure the necessary users get the permission for the Power app, and they have to be signed in Power BI as well. For example, if they're signed in inside Power BI but they don't have access to the Power app, the visual will only show loading sign, and it would show that the user do not have access for that Canvas app.
Okay. At this point, I don't see any other questions on the chat, Jason, but thank you so much for coming to Hyderabad Power Platform User Group. And guys, if you have any questions for Jason, please feel free to reach out to him on LinkedIn. I have highlighted his social media credential here on the screen as well, and it is on the chat at the same time. So please reach out in case there are any questions. Okay, so Jason, is there anything else you would like to share with our attendees?
I was very happy. This was my first time. Thank you so much for joining, taking out your time and joining my session. For a quick summary, we have seen how we can use the Power BI. How we can use Power Automate and Power Apps visual inside Power BI. I had demonstrated a simple app which can send timely invoice reminders inside Power BI itself. There was another use case scenario like timesheet entries or leave tracker. For example, do you have a leave report which says the number of times employees on leave? So if you want to approve leaves and all, you can develop a easy canvas app using a drop down, a text box, and a button, and embed it inside Power BI, so that it would be easier to use. For Power Automate, I have explained a simple scenario like if you want to export the data set of Power BI outside into SharePoint in the form of Excel, CSV, that can be done easily. So there are many business challenges that can be solved by this approach by using all these three apps together. Hope my session added some value, and it was great pleasure interacting with all of you.
Okay, thank you, Jason. And with that, it covers the both of our sessions in the agenda today. So first, we had a session about the Power Apps component framework and how it can help you build your custom controls. And later, we had another session by Jason, which was about how you can integrate Power Apps, Power Automate, and Power BI to automate your business scenarios. So first of all, thank you so much all for joining us today on a Saturday. I know it requires serious dedication, but thank you so much for joining. And we will meet next month with another meetup with another speakers and with some other cool stuff on Power Platform. And other thing is, if you would like to present a session as part of our meetup groups, and if you have some information you would like to share with the other community members, you can reach out to me or Yash, and we can help you with a slot in one of the next meetups. But for now, thank you so much all for joining, and we will meet next month. In the meanwhile, if you have any questions, you can reach out to us, or you can drop a note on the Hyderabad Power Platform user group page. For that, also, I shared the URL earlier in the chat, so you can join the group and you can ask questions if there are any. So, thank you so much, and bye bye.
Thanks, bye.